So, I think this is a good place to start. Thank you all. I wanted to have this just maybe a little earlier, or a little earlier last month, or a little later last month, but man, it's amazing how quickly time can get away from you. So, this is sort of our middle of the time update. I want to give you guys some updates on some stuff, and I want to start some conversations because, as Autumn can attest, things are definitely changing. USITT things are definitely getting different, and I need some feedback from you guys, just and some direction in which way to go. So let's start with the updates. Programming, which is the first thing on the list here. Programming, we are I don't know, Autumn. I could say this has definitely been a different year than we've had for programming. I think there have been. Uh oh. I may have to figure out how to mute here in a second.
Me?
Okay, it's not Tim. Tim, I'm going to unmute you now. Actually, Tim, see if you can unmute yourself. Yeah, I muted you. Oh, there we go. Okay. Because you were just sending through sound. I was trying to figure out if it was you or not. It wasn't. Okay, sorry about that. So it's been a very different year this year. I think there were some new expectations that we weren't quite ready for. The biggest one being programming needed to be locked down by August, and we were sort of going on some old assumptions, and I don't think we were quite ready for it. So what happened was we went to our big programming meeting in Columbus. And went through with everybody, and what they wanted was they wanted publishable sessions ready to publish, and we're used to changing things. I think a little later in the date, so that was definitely something good to learn, and I think we'll do better about that in the future. So Jonathan, as we're thinking about next year, we're just going to have to, for programming, we're just going to have to make sure deadlines are early, a little earlier, and just make sure everybody's clear about what we need. But I don't know, Autumn, what would you say? We're probably 85% there right now? Or Jesse, either one?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're obviously still, going to be filling in panelists, but I think the session descriptions are in a pretty good place. So yeah, I think we're probably 85% there.
Yeah. I think the big thing that we need to make sure everybody knows next year, and I'll say, because not all the VCs are actually monitoring a session this year. Some of you are, some of you aren't. I sent you an email today just to touch base and tell you where we should be. But the big thing is over the summer is really where we need to get panelists figured out and descriptions figured out. And honestly, I mean, we all know it may not be the final list, but it should be a good sized list. It should be meaning that we can try to get a commitment from somebody if they can commit. But over the summer is, by August 1st. And here's why. It's because we've got non-member funding that we have to apply for, and the date for that this year was September 1st. And then October 1st is when registration goes live. When registration goes live, all the descriptions go live because they want to be able to sell every single session. So it's no big deal. I just wanted to let you know that was that'll be. We'll just need to adjust a little bit for next year, but for this year we're in pretty good place. We've got Paul Miller and Ken Billington for our PDW. We're going to have a one-day. We're going to have a one-day master class with them. But other than that's pretty good. Any questions about programming? Okay. Give me half a second. Hey, Autumn. Well, never mind. Hold on. Andrea's trying to get on. She's texting me. I just need to tell her to. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. All right. So the next thing I want to tell you about is awards. DAA, we haven't got the official confirmation yet, but Ann Valentino was accepted as our DAA. We have unofficially told her that, so we can get the session started. I'm not sure when they're going to announce that. Barbizon Award this summer. Anthony Palecchia and a group of people. I know some of you on this list today helped redo the Barbizon Award. We got that approved through Awards and Recognitions Committee, so the new criteria is going to work. They tweaked it just a little bit. Not the heart of what we had is still there. They just changed a couple little things, and we had to mess with some of what we're requiring. But essentially, it's sort of a whole new system, and actually they took what you guys wrote and actually used it as a model for other awards. Okay, that's how good you guys did. So thank you, everyone who helped figure that out. I'm still. We were tweaking like a couple little words here and there. Once I get that done, I'll send that out to everybody just so everybody can look at it. Keep in mind those nominations are going to go up by, say, middle of the month, maybe? Middle of this month? I think it's the middle of this month, middle of next month is when the Barbizon Awards will go up. Please get the word out. If you've got students, if you know people who have students, get them signed up for that. There wasn't a huge turnout last year, and I'll be honest, I judged last year, guys. Trust me, undergrads have a shot at this. Grads have a shot at this. I mean, there was some not so good stuff. There was some good stuff, but your kids do have a chance. So please, let's get the word out about that. Light Lab and the main stage room. In August we met with the Sound Commission and the new Digital Media Commission, which actually I should add that to the agenda. And we've all agreed that not the upcoming year, it's going to be Sound Lab, but the year after that, we're going to have combined labs. It'll be Sound Lab, Light Lab, and Digital Media Lab all in one. Essentially what it's going to be, it's going to be what we did last year, except we're only going to program 2 slots, or 1 or 2 slots. I mean, I'm hoping for 2. But what this means is we're going to get to have, really good programming for a couple slots. We'll work with the main stage committee, which they now want to be called, and really make sure we get the gear that we need for our sessions, but also the other sessions. So any comments or thoughts, questions about that?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, so the Light Lab committee, as we have it set up, Brian has set it up so there's a Light Lab portion. Anthony Palecki is gonna lead that group up. He's actually going to be the member. He's going to be on the main stage committee, and then it'll sort of work from there. So just because I'm looking at Tim, there's actually going to be 2 stages to manage. So we might have to think about eventually splitting. I don't know if you want to manage both or split both, but that's something we're going to need to talk about because we're going to have an indoor stage and an outdoor stage. Yeah. And we're working on getting, actually, we've put a proposal in to get 2 of our sessions on the outdoor stage. One is the busking session and the other is the outdoor safety. I'm hoping we should hear if we got those in, or not. And if we do get those, we will get 1 more programming slot to put in, which will be pretty cool. But, all right.
Hey, Todd, it's Eric.
Hey, Eric.
We're talking with the programming team about the outdoor sessions by the end of this week, I think, just looking at all of the proposals and which ones fit in the slots that we have available. So I think you should be able to hear back by the end of the week from the programming folks on that.
Wonderful. Is it looking pretty good for us? No, I'm kidding.
I haven't. I mean, there's not a lot of proposals, right. So I haven't looked at any of them yet, but they sort of are asking for advice.
I'm just kidding.
But I'm trying whatever I can do. But I think the other thing that I wanted to add about the sort of main stage and things like that is some other opportunities. There's a stage on the expo floor, innovation stage. There's a costume stage this year and sort of backdrop showcase. And if there's opportunities for primarily students to volunteer to work on any of those to help put it together, if you're interested in, or if people are interested in that being an opportunity, then instead of Ron sort of doing them by himself, we can really get people into those places as well, just for more opportunities. They're not large, but it would be helpful, I think, from a production point of view.
Okay. Wonderful, and that's something that I know we can definitely help with. So.
And the other thing is that I heard from Jason Fordman and Monica that for years we've been trying to get like a real sort of student labor sort of sign-up sheet for student volunteers that will take a resume and that will actually ask questions about experience. And they finally said that that's a great idea, and we're working to try to put together one portal that will be for all of those sort of general student volunteers for sort of room monitors and just general assistants, and then there's going to be one for more skilled labor. And we're looking for opportunities of naming. Is it an internship, an externship, a skilled volunteering, whatever that is, and whatever questions people might have is what do we want to vet, that if we get a list of that, we can put it together and people actually sign up there in one spot for all of those opportunities.
Okay, wonderful. Let's see real quick. I'm just trying to...
Hey, Todd?
Yeah?
Excuse me. Could we get those people who are calling in or on their computers, if they're not speaking, could they please mute their microphones? Thank you.
Okay. All right. I'm going to start muting a few people just to see if I can figure out who this is. All right. I think I found the offending one. That might have been the 513 number. If I've muted you and you can't unmute, just put it in chat and I'll try to get you changed. Okay. All right. Let's move on. Lighting Studio. The Lighting Studio is going to happen this year. It's going to have its own room, and it. I'm not sure how big the room's going to be, but Stephen has already started working on some stuff. He's got a good plan, I think, for the year. But it looks like we're going to get 4 to 6 consoles. We got 2 20-amp circuits coming in, and then we're going to have a sign-up sheet. So keep an eye out for when sign-ups are going to be. I'll let you guys know, probably via the Basecamp or something else. But we need to get the word out. We need to get people in the studio using it. And we need as best we can. The USITT is going to promote it too, but let's definitely try to get the word out. But this is going to be our sort of hands-on place for people to try stuff. And if this works, it's something we could do every year. So help us get the word out. Any questions about that? Okay. Poster session. All right. The poster session is going through some changes, but not. It's still going to be the same process for putting in an abstract, except guess what? They're not going to be posters this year. They're going to be digital. The USITT National Office has contracted with a group who are going to essentially set up 4 big screens, and they've got a program they use to display all the content. But what this means is they're going to put this out in a high-traffic area, and that'll be roped off, and essentially there's going to be 4 screens throughout the whole conference with every single poster. So if you want to see sound posters, if you want to see, actually I don't think sound does posters, but the TD posters, the scene design posters, they're all going to be in that one area. And we're working on, actually I got a meeting tomorrow in which we're going to set up what are the parameters, because you can include video, you can include sides, but we want to give parameters before people go too crazy. The poster session abstract applications are live right now, so you can actually go apply for those. Again, help us pass the word. One of the things that I really want to work on this year, and I have to say Alan and Philip both have been amazing at helping me just with this transition into digital, but also too really looking at our criteria. I think the thing is that there was a question brought up at last year's USITT commissioners meeting about, somebody suggested with our poster sessions, if anyone ever questioned our acceptance rate, there might be issues. So for instance, our acceptance rate, I think they said we accepted 7 out of 8 last year or 6 out of 7 last year. That acceptance rate in most academics' eyes is a little too high. So we're going to be a little more choosy. And we may not have as many as we have, but I think in some ways
6 out of 7 last year.
we were always...
That acceptance rate in most academics' eyes is a little too high.
I hear myself.
So, we're gonna be a
Somebody's
little more
bleeding through. Let me see if I can figure out who that is.
choosy.
If you just joined, if you aren't muted, could you please mute your volume just so... Okay. So essentially, we may not have as many as we had last year, okay? Because we want to try to increase the quality of the posters, okay? One of the things, we don't have to worry about filling up a whole session because we've actually partnered with Scene Design, and we're going to present together. We're just going to use the same time, and we'll work out the details of that. But we figured this would be a good way if we're too smaller. Our commission poster sessions are usually smaller, so we're going to combine and we're going to try this year and see if it works. See if we can't make it make the presentation work a little better. The presentations might have to change. They may not quite be the same. We're going to experiment this year with the digital format and just see how those need to change. But like I said, once we get those guidelines set forward, again, I'll pass them forward to you guys and we'll get the word out. But it mostly affects those who actually get a poster accepted as opposed to if you're applying for one. Because when you apply, you just apply for the abstract. Okay? Cool. Any questions about poster session?
Nope.
Great. Special projects. We are still working on 2 special projects, one in network graphics and one in lighting graphics. I won't say that I can say they haven't moved a lot recently, but there is movement. Like I'm now on the networks committee, and I'm starting to get some of the stuff. And I know there's things that have been started. We probably still need to move a little more. The same with the lighting graphics. I don't think it's moved much. The thing we're stalled a little bit in lighting graphics right now is we're in the middle of changing the leadership because we haven't been able to really move forward with our current leadership of that committee. And I know Nate's working on finding somebody new to head that up. I don't know where he is with that, but if that's something you might be interested in, actually, I see Nate. But contact me if you're interested. Go ahead, Nate, if you want to. Do you have any better updates on those?
Not particularly. Apologies.
Okay. No, it's fine.
And I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna take my headset off and talk into the microphone because I'm hearing everything 3 times. So I'll try to do this real quick. If you're interested, please let me know. I've had a couple people that I've reached out to, and those folks have not been able to. And then I've also been out for the last couple of weeks. So if you're interested in being involved in either network or graphics, send me an email, and we'll just make this easy. You can see me on the left-hand side. NateParty@gmail is the easiest way to get a hold of me. I'm muting again.
Thank you very much. There's something else to talk about, but I'll wait till in the next big bullet point. The thing that's not on the agenda that I should add in here is the new digital media. I'm not sure how aware of this you guys are. The board voted not in August, but the board meeting before that, I think it was. They voted to create a new digital media commission, which is the Projections Commission. So we now actually have that new commission started. In August, they named a commissioner, which is going to be what's Joe's last name? Autumn, mine blank. Joe
Payne.
Payne, thank you. I've written him only 100 emails in the past 2 months. Okay, so here's so why do we care? Well, we care because we deal with projections, but also the vice president of commissions decided that they're going to work with us. We're mentoring them. Our commission is mentoring their commission for the next couple years to get them started. Okay, so what that means is right now they're figuring out their leadership. Joe is the only one they have really signed on. I copy him on every email that I send for USITT, poor guy. And we're just going to slowly help them. So what we're going to do is this year, we had already had this set up before. We were helping them with 2 sessions. Next year, we're going to help them with more sessions, 4 to 6. We got to kind of figure out what that's going to be. And then ultimately, we'll help them with their own. Next year, they'll have their own VC of COM, a VC of programming, and then we'll mentor that person with our VC of programming with Jonathan. So you're going to sort of have a teammate in that'll handle the projection stuff, and then we'll handle the lighting stuff. And then when we give the okay, then they're going to sort of have full commission status. I mean, they are a full commission, but Carolyn's really wants them to take some time and learn it all before going off and becoming their own. This is a really cool thing. It means that projection's finally going to get the what it deserves. I can tell you now, some of you who are in the room, if they haven't reached out to you, they will reach out to you. We've been talking about Leadership List. It was amazing how many people from lighting might be working with them as well. Please know, whatever help I can get from you, please just if you go do work on that commission, that does not limit you to work with the Lighting Commission or vice versa. So if you want to do stuff in either commission, please let us know. And if you are interested in working with the Projections Commission, if you email Joe Payne, actually email me and I'll forward it to Joe, just because I know you all have my email address. Questions about digital media? Okay. And just a reminder for those of you on the computer, there is the chat button. If there's something that like I'm talking too fast, you just want to throw it into chat, please do. I'll make sure I keep up on that. Okay. Real quick, next thing I want to talk about is we talked about this. I actually was looking at our last agenda. We talked about this a little bit last time. But the role of leadership, and I mean, all of you who are on here, I definitely have a leadership role. It's been interesting this year. We've had more people who've had to drop out because they were just busy. And we've had some instances where we've had to make some changes in leadership positions on the committee level because people were too busy. Couple things I just want to go over. The nomination process, I just want to remind everyone there is a nominations process that we've set up in our manual. There's a link. You have to go fill something out. And this is for anyone who wants to be a VC. Okay. Representatives, I would like them to go through the nomination process, and the coordinators. I mean, if you're any of those positions, I would like to go through the nomination process. It helps make it transparent, and also I announce this and let everybody know at the commission meetings that anybody can apply. I have to say I had very few this year. Okay, just because I was dealing with a whole bunch of other stuff, I didn't push the issue, and I went ahead and because most of you should have all gotten a letter of everyone, with the exception of Light Lab Committee, everyone should have gotten a letter from me inviting you to the post. I won't do that next year. I'm going to stick to this process next year. If you want to be involved, I'm asking you to please fill out a form that takes less than 5 minutes. And it's just so we can be open and transparent about who our leadership is. Okay, so please, if you have time, please do that. And that's just something else. I just want to remind everybody, this is a 365.
Todd, one quick question.
Sure.
What's the term limit for VCs?
6 years. And that was, I think that's set by the commissioner's manual.
Right. So it's once you're nominated or elected, you're in office for 3 years and you can serve 2 terms.
Well, this is where there's been some debate.
Okay.
I'm sorry, did you say commissioners or VCs?
VCs.
VCs.
Because I had.
Go ahead.
I'd had a conversation with David Grindle because I was trying to remember when you asked how long have you been a commissioner. I had to have a conversation with David about that, and at that point, I think that they were leaning toward making it, the 6 years, but it could be 3 years or 2 years or whatever we want it to be, or it could be each year, which it is right now.
Yeah.
So.
And I can't remember if it's the commissioner's manual or our manual. I think it's the commissioner's manual. It technically is 1 year, which is a pain in the ass from our standpoint. From my standpoint, it's just because renominating everybody every year. It'd be nice if there was a little more stability. That is one of the things I think we're working on, and I think. Do you remember what they said? Did they say we could change that, or if we need to change that on commission level, or do you remember, or am I misremembering?
No, I don't. I think that we might be able to make on the commission level, I'd talk to Carolyn and find out if we can. I mean, like you said, it would make more sense instead of having to go through this process every year.
Oh yeah.
That say we go through it every 2 years.
Right. Autumn.
Or every 3 years or whatever,
Okay. Autumn, do you remember?
So I just looked at the commissioner's manual. That's where it is.
Okay.
They are 1-year terms, and you can serve up to 6 years maximum in a particular role.
Right.
And then my understanding, though, is if we wanted to change that rule, it has to come from the commissioner's manual. I don't think we can do it as the Lighting Commission.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely something we definitely want to look at. One of the things that the issues that the Costume Commission had was they have people who switch roles a lot, so they were having trouble getting some fresh faces, I think, in there because the same people would just switch positions, and they were all within the 6 years. Yeah, Autumn just put in the chat that VCs can serve 6 years in a single role. And again, for me, my approach to this is I want to get new voices in. I want to try to rotate in a few new people in this year. Jonathan, at this point, I do need to. We do need. He asked, in the chat, do we need to fill out the form each year? And the answer is yes. Yes, we do. The only role that's kind of weird like that, the only two roles that are weird are the VC of programming. We tend to choose a year out, which is what Jonathan is next time, and then the associate commissioner is technically under those same rules. But those would be the only two that, I mean, we probably might not need to fill that out for, but okay. So the big thing is I just want everybody to sort of sit back and think about your position, what you're doing, and make sure you have time to commit to this. It feels like USITT in general is doing more, so I think they're going to be expecting more out of us. I can say this year has been the busiest USITT year I've ever had, and this is my second year as commissioner, third essentially. When I started as associate, and the amount of work that we're getting done is a lot. So, just if you do question whether you have time or not, please let's have the conversation, because maybe I can shift some things and make it so we can work. But I'm sorry, I'm drifting a little bit. But again, I just wanted to remind everybody of that. And again, if you're having issues, let me know. Reps and coordinators technically should be a little less than that. Although I'll say that the coordinators for poster have been working a lot since the past 2.5 months. As we're trying to figure out the new poster session stuff. And then the committee work should be a lot less. It should be maybe a little bit more towards conference time. So one of the things, just so you guys know, is I'm always trying to choose leadership. For me, it's trying to find that balance of experts versus people who have the time. I mean, who get in there and do that. I'm sorry, people like yourselves who have been working with the commission for a long time. Maybe somebody who's been in Light Lab. It's a challenge, when I know when Ann said she was going to leave and step down as VC of Design, it was trying to find that balance of people who have worked with us, and it's really in many ways I want to try to get more experts in the field. But the problem is the more experts we bring in, they may not have the time to commit that we need commitment. Does that just in leadership? Are there any questions about leadership in general, or anything maybe that I haven't addressed? What are your thoughts? Autumn, is there anything I left out? Message from Autumn Casey. Nope. Okay. All right. So this is the part where I really want to shut the hell up. Actually, well, I got a story to tell, and then I'm going to shut the hell up. And I need your feedback. So the past 2 years, I would say, it's been, for lack of a better word, contentious with the commissions. When it comes to programming, we have been not been meeting the expectations of the programmers, and they have been telling us that. The short answer is we've had our wrist slapped a few times for things like, stuff changing, last minute. And, everybody really, there is a concerted effort from everyone to make the programming better, and we're struggling figuring out how ways that we can not only I think we all have ideas about how to make it better. It's just try to implementing it with a full volunteer organization. So what this came down to is we started having the conversation at our commissioners meeting about, well, what is a commission? And it got pretty heated. And I'm not sure, Jim, if you were or Paul, or if either of you guys were in the board meeting before, but evidently it got pretty heated there about what a commission is. And what a commission's supposed to do. So the commissions are in the process of writing a letter to the board, sort of talking about what we think we are and who we are and what our place in USITT is. So that's the background. In your guys' mind, what do you guys think? What is a commission? What is our role in USITT?
Todd, what is our perceived role right now? What does the commission manual say we are?
That's a good question. Autumn, do you have it open? Autumn's going to look for us real quick. If you have that link handy, can you throw that link in chat? Okay. I'm going to give her a chance to... Okay, if you guys get a chance, if you click on that link in the chat, I'll bring it up on my screen too. Okay. Let me just scroll down here real quick. Promoting this according to the Commissioner's Manual, and you guys got to understand, we just updated this. Promoting research and innovation and creating by sponsoring projects, programs, and symposia. Disseminating information about the aesthetic and technological developments. Providing opportunities for professional contacts and networking. Producing the USITT National Conference. That essentially means programming. Participating in the development of industry standards. Promoting and sponsoring international activities, alliances and activities. Advocating safe, efficient, ethical practices. Sponsoring and promoting exhibits related to the commissions, and recognizing excellence in the performing arts, education, and entertainment industry, and develop and advocate for a diverse landscape of a professional theater artist. That's as just sort of defined about what we are. Or is that, hold on, mission? That's USITT's mission. I'm sorry. That's not, that sounds pretty good for the commissions though, right? I don't know that we have. I mean, I'm sitting here looking. I don't see if we have one. All right, let me just shut up. Let me let some other people are trying to get in here.
Okay, so what is listed in the Commissioner's Manual under the USITT bylaws, the corporation may designate any number of commissions as the board of directors by resolution adopted by a majority of the entire board. Let me skip to the end of that. Haha. Each commission shall be established to promote, recognize, and provide programming and assistance to research activities in subject areas of interest to the corporation and its members. The results of such activities shall be the dissemination of information to the membership and the entertainment, arts, design, and technology community for the advancement of the profession.
And Andrea found this on the commission's website, which is interesting because I don't think anybody from the commissions wrote this, just to be frank. I mean, it's good though, but the function of USITT commissions is to conduct and encourage communication of and about shared interest of the membership by providing forums, professional growth through conference programming, by developing research projects, and by collecting and disseminating information. Okay. So I think that's part of the problem is there's a lot out there. What do you guys think we should be doing?
Todd, just to jump in here, I've always sort of thought about it as the commissions are sort of like the, to use the legal term, the subject matter experts in each of those disciplines. So, for the Lighting Commission, that means that essentially for USITT, we're the lighting discipline experts in lighting design and technology when it comes to determining programming. I mean, when it comes to programming, I think one of the challenges we always face is we've got some great ideas about some incredible guests from the industry to bring in and wanting to engage the industry a lot more, but we're so limited on who we can bring in from outside that kind of ties a hand behind our back.
How are we limited on who we can bring in?
Resources to bring in the guests. Unless I'm misunderstanding how many non-members we're allowed to bring in to be panel speakers, that kind of stuff.
There is a limit, definitely. Go ahead, Autumn.
Yeah, so I think, Josh, you've sort of hit the nail on the head. And I think part of what we're trying to promote and what David is trying to promote is why aren't those people members? And that's one thing that I was going to talk about a little bit later on when we talk about programming. But, if they're not members, why? Right? If this is our sort of primary organization. So then if we're not serving them, how do we serve them? Like, what are we missing in this in between? Because clearly sort of we're serving, I think, students and educators very well. And I think, working professional educators who are out working, but I think those that are just freelance designers, I don't know that we're serving particularly well. And so if there's no incentive to join us, then yeah, it's hard to get them to participate.
What's interesting is they keep saying the money's there, and we haven't been turned down for too many of our requests. Come to find out, in our commissioners meeting, somebody was asking about how many requests, and they looked up how many we had last year. We had 22 non-member requests funded last year. Our commission alone. Now, I think a lot of those were some conference passes and stuff like that. I don't think those were full non-member. So I think we definitely need to start reaching and asking a little more. But other thoughts? Okay.
The feedback I hear when I talk to people in doing that sessions and trying to, whether they're a member or non-member, is kind of, why would I pay for a membership to come talk to people, right? Why would I pay to just come share my expertise when you want me to come share my expertise with you, right? So it's kind of hard to argue with that at the moment.
Well, let me ask this question: why are you guys members? I'm skipping around a little bit. I know. Why are you guys members? Why are you here?
I guess I'll go. I'm a member because I owe my current job to USITT and to the networking and opportunities that it afforded. So I want to give back to make sure other people have those same opportunities.
Okay. If you're not in the chat and you can't read, I'll just read. I just want to read a few of these real quick. Victoria said, I think there's still a large assumption that USITT is a primary educational organization, and they're just went away. And there are still some that see it as a huge asset to those not in academia. I would agree with that. Need to expand on international members? Yes. Thank you, our new international representative, Todd Stubaker. He's right about that. We have and honestly, we have very little representation in lighting in USITT, and we're working. Todd's going to try to start working on that.
I don't know if this comes into play, but a lot of people, you know, the conference has been getting more and more expensive over the year, and a lot of people don't see the point in USITT outside of the conference. And I think that I think we know that it's there, but I think a lot of people aren't really seeing the value outside of that 1 week commitment. And if you can't commit to that 1 week, then why bother?
Okay, yeah, because I know a lot of people that's all they do is they sign up if they're going to the conference. Sorry, I'm just reading some of these. Anybody else want to chime in? Darren brings up a good point. You know, cost of scheduling is a challenge for many, and whether it be a fixed corporate or educational travel budgets. Just to go back to what Kurt said, is anybody else who's doing this right now doing this for another reason than to serve? Or give back?
Yes, I'll jump in on that. Because I now have like 4 titles in this organization. To me, it's not just, okay, I serve. It's I serve a purpose. We can help change things in our industry. We've already started to do it. That's one of the major reasons why I still contribute every year. I still pay my membership every year. Well, the university pays my membership, so I guess that's different. But it is because I believe this organization can help make a difference within this industry. That's my 2 cents.
Hey, Victoria, can you unmute and say some of these things you've been putting in chat?
Okay, did this work?
Hey, there we go.
Did this work?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. My phone is sometimes baffling, apparently. Yes. Where would you like me to expound upon?
I don't know. You've just been writing a bunch of good things about professional members.
Well, and my position also is a little bit different since I'm not in the academic world at the moment. Even though, but grad school happened for me because of USITT. The job that I have now is in part because of USITT. That's where I met our national guys. But I do think that in talking to a lot of the other people that I do on a daily basis and just in and out of other conferences and, rep stuff and things that we do here, USITT is still seen as primarily an educational thing. And a lot of people don't realize, and, even though I will talk to my, face turns blue, that we're very much not just academia, that's actually a big part of it, but that's not the only part of it. There's still a really, really overwhelming thought process behind most people that it's really primarily just for educational. So if you're not in the academic world, if you're not looking for grad school, if you're not looking for, an immediate job, although since there's not as much of the job finding and job placement stuff as they have at like SEPC, then a lot of people just can't really justify the expense in their mind. Also, you've got things like ETC doing Q, and I actually know of probably a dozen different people this year that did not go to USITT because they went to EETCQ. So whether they were having specific amount of development funds from their job, from their university, from wherever, they chose ETCQ over USITT. So not having really highly specialized topics that could then maybe apply to stuff, whether it's more extensive console training, whether it's more in-depth on media server, whatever it may be, because we don't have those very, very specific technical things that a lot of people are being required to do at their universities now and in their freelance jobs that they're going to where they can get that and get that experience and knowledge to try and offset to better their position. So I mean that's kind of what I'm seeing.
Right. A few people have brought up LDI. I mean, and how sort of how LDI fits in. I mean, I have to ask the question: what can we offer through USITT that LDI can't? And I know some of you say like Andrea, I'm the same way. I would love to go to both, but I had to choose, and I chose USITT.
I can tell what a lot of the LDI stuff is doing, and it's actually interesting from what I'm seeing also on the, again, professional world going into LDI. There's actually also kind of fewer people going to LDI. One place where USITT is doing much better than LDI is that LDI is now parked it, and that they've been in Vegas for the past several years, and they're not moving and rotating back and forth as much across the country. So there's actually several people on my coast that just they don't want to go to Vegas. They're tired of it and having to justify the expenses to everyone of why they're going out to Vegas. But there, it's the gear, and it's the attracting manufacturers, and that if there's going to be a major release, it's going to be happening at LDI. If there's going to be major new information, it's going to be released at LDI. And so it's a big catch-up game like in that area, and that's where the new tech, the new information, the new stuff, and frankly all the bells and whistles are going to LDI, and now even more to now it's not going to come to me, but the big one in Amsterdam, that's name is leaving me right now. But that's, I mean, don't get me wrong, I want my company to send me to Amsterdam, but that's not happening. But that's where a lot of people are trying to then focus.
Right. Sorry, I'm just.
Hey, Todd.
Yeah. Yes.
This is Russ Blaine. Yeah, I think what Andrew just said, I agree with that quite a bit. And also to kind of expand on it, in trying to attract the people that are working regularly in the commercial end of the industry, I got into academics later, right? I worked almost 20 years in the industry, and that whole time I was going to LDI. And part of it is all the manufacturers are available to you there, but also it's in the networking. In academics, the people who are more likely to advance my career are going to be attending USITT. In the commercial end of things, I had more access to people who could advance my career at LDI. But like Andrea said, I stopped going because I hate Vegas. If they still went to Orlando every other year, I'd go every other year. But for me, the combination is if I was to leave academics tomorrow, I would probably go back to going to LDI for the networking reasons and also because of their structure as far as the more advanced workshops. At USITT, we pay one entrance fee and then we can go to any of those seminars we want to. We do have to pay more for PDWs. LDI, they pay more, individually for what they're going to and pay a lesser amount to just be able to but attend the conference in general. But I think a lot of it is just I hate to say it because I love USITT, but I think at a commercial or, God forbid, use the word professional level, they offer more opportunities both in learning and networking. And it would be very difficult, I think, for us to do that.
One thing
Go ahead,
that
I'm
would
done.
be very, and is frankly way above my pay grade, is I know that there is definitely a pay to play in USITT as to who's coming, who's showing, who can do, and all of that. I don't know what the rules are for LDI. I would be curious to know as how ours stacks up versus how theirs stacks up. I'm sure there's still some pay to play because let's face it, we can charge one for anything. That's the American way. But I would like to see how that compares because I do know that we're limited. We don't have as many. There's not as many manufacturers. There's not as many, vendors and stuff that are at USITT as there are at LDI.
Well,
so that would be another curiosity, again, trying to attract more people and to be more competitive and say, look at how much more we're offering.
Well, I think it's definitely changing.
I need to unmute.
No, I think definitely think you just brought up a great point, which is the idea of paying to play, or charging vendors for access for not a show floor space, but also session times. And I could say this is definitely something that's changing at USITT. I think we're doing a lot more of that. I think what my big dilemma is and the thing that I'm shouting from the mountains to everybody is, I mean, we have an interesting thing in that we're not all pay to play. Is that in ideally the stuff the commission comes up with is vetted content, that doesn't have a sales pitch with it. Okay, but there is a lot of stuff that like Roscoe, and I used to do a session all the time. I know a lot of other companies do sessions where sometimes they became sales pitches, and yeah, did you learn stuff? Yes, but and I think that's one of the things that makes us unique is we can say that we do have both of those, but sort of both of those avenues at our conference. The challenge is, though, I think we've got to make our stuff, the vetted stuff, things that people want to see. And I think Jonathan said it earlier, and many of you have said this, that we saw this impression as being for the educators, and for a long time we were programming for the students. I've been trying to take the opposite approach, which is we're programming for the professionals, and let's face it, the students are going to get just as much out of it. And I think we need to have that approach more often. Andrea, can you unmute? You've been saying a lot of good things in chat. I'd like you to throw in your 2 cents.
Okay, I think I got that right.
Yep, you got
it. Okay, I just have about 2 minutes before I have to step out for another meeting. I don't know. What do you want me to say? Well, beyond what I've been typing.
Some people are on the phone, so they don't have that. I don't know. Was there any big? What's the biggest thing of that stuff you typed in you want to get across?
Oh, gotcha. I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize. I think one of the biggest questions that I have is what is it that people view continuing education? Because one of the things that I feel like when I hear that divide of those who are out in the profession or in the industry versus education is that there seems to be this idea that education isn't for everyone. I kind of get that feeling when I hear that there's that split, and I'm wondering, how do we change the perception that you are always constantly learning, regardless of what you're doing, and that all of these things can be and should be beneficial to your career, regardless of where you are in your career. So what that brings me to is, what kind of continuing education credit could we offer, and is that applicable to what we do? Because I think that's one of the things that still draws me towards, can I afford to go to LDI this year on top of the expense of USITT? And usually the answer is no. But I know that this year I'm going to have to dig down deep and find it, because we're building a building. And I'm not getting everything that I need from USITT in that regard. So I'm just trying to think about, if I had some sort of thing that I had needed continuing education credit for, like ETCP, or if my place of business required some sort of certification, is there something that USITT can offer? Because I think that's additionally what draws me towards LDI is, if I had something for continuing education credit, it's offered there. It's also offered at UTCQ. So those are things that really appeal to me visually when I first start reading into these things.
Okay. Jim just brought up a good point, which is ANOVA. Do you guys know what ANOVA is? It was interesting. One of the other commissioners came up to me, pardon me, at the commissioners meeting and said, because I think David or somebody came in and said, "What's ANOVA?" Or was talking about ANOVA, and they came. The commissioner came up to me later and said, "Did you know about ANOVA?" And it's like, yes, I did, but that's only because I heard it in the USITT. It was the keynote was where I heard it. But what ANOVA is, it's actually online classes that you can purchase from USITT to get continuing just to learn new things. I think there might be continuing education credit with those. Is that right, Jim?
Give me a second. I got to check.
Okay.
I think my question with that, though, is that if we're trying to pull more people into the conference, then that would further the divide. Because do I spend $2,000 to come to the conference, or do I spend $50 for an online class?
Well, I think it's not only it's getting membership up. I think is part of it, and I'm hoping that the stuff that they put on Innova is stuff that might be a little too, I won't say too simple, but maybe a little less focused than what we want to offer programming. But that's a great question. Is Innova going to cannibalize ourselves? I don't know. Okay, I've sort of gotten off track. Autumn, get me back on track. Where should we go next? Hold on, Autumn.
Maybe we could shift to programming a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, I think we sort of covered a lot of these other questions.
Why don't you lead this? Why don't you lead this conversation?
Sure. So, and I will say, I just at the end of our previous one, or our sort of ending up concluding the conversation we've been having, the goal is not just to get people to the conference anymore, at least certainly from David Grindle's point of view. Like, yes, he wants you at the conference, but he really wants more members, and then looking at having other opportunities to do things year round, which my initial thought was also, oh my God, we're going to cannibalize ourselves. No one can afford to go to the conference and use 12 other things. But I think, sort of to the point that I made earlier, are we serving sort of our professional only members? You know, maybe the conference isn't right for them if they can't take a whole week off. But if we had smaller sessions that were much more specific throughout the year, maybe that would be an option. So to sort of open the discussion, you know, we have, is there a disconnect in programming? And this came from partially Todd and I looking at the programming list for this year, and I will say I am partly to blame in how we got to where we did, which is like, okay, who are all of our constituents? Are we serving them? You know, how are we serving them? We need to make sure we have something for people who are primarily technicians and people who are, you know, just starting out. What is something geared just to the professionals? And I think in doing that, we may have lost something. You know, are there sessions that we have programmed that you guys are super excited about going to this year? And is there stuff that we're missing? You know, like when I think about the sessions that I really want to see happen at the conference, they're so specific that I rule them out myself. Like, I don't even put them on the list because I'm like, well, that's going to serve 10 people and not the 200 that I'm trying to program for. But I think maybe in some ways we need to start thinking about those, you know, what is the super niche thing that you really need to know in order to advance? So that's sort of the question I have: is there a disconnected programming, and how can we serve ourselves? And I think in that way we're also serving the professionals that are working, because I don't know that we're speaking to them yet. So Victoria, you know, are the other commissions seeing this? Yes and no. I think we are a little unique in that we, because of LDI, that can be a little bit problematic, right? And so we're trying to, you know, we are sort of split in half, I think, as an industry, whereas the Custom Commission, this is big, they have the Custom Society of America and things like that, but it's not as big a conference. And so I think everyone feels like their programming is a little bit middle of the road. At least that's the sense that I got. I also don't want to speak out of turn, so Todd, nod vigorously either way.
No, I agree with everything you're saying, I think, and there are some commissions that are looking at this and trying to sort of think about what they're doing. But to be frank, I won't name any names. There's a couple commissions that, frankly, they're just moving the ball along. They're just doing the same thing they've always done, so some are looking at it, and yes, but I have to say we've started the dialogue. That was the great thing about the commissioners meeting this year is we started the dialogue. We just need to see where it goes. To be frank, I've been frustrated, and Autumn's heard me for the last 6 months just really be frustrated with what we're doing. Are we serving members, and can we do what we need to do? But what is there a different approach? What do you guys think? I mean, and I thought Otto brought up a great point. Do we need to start thinking more niche type stuff and less general stuff? Would that be more helpful?
Todd, I think a combination of both would be effective. Lean more toward the niche stuff. I mean, like the thing you and I have been talking about, the network graphics, PDW that we wanted to do for 2 years now. That's something very, very specific, and someone who's interested in that will come to that. But then you also need to have that session for a student who's not quite sure what that is. And basically it's sort of that we have to serve both. We have to serve two masters at this point to make it work.
Someone just texted me.
Well,
go ahead.
I was going to say, the serving two masters, I think the prohibition for a student on your niche class is that it's a PDW, right? That you're trying to make money on it. And I think if you can to me, Todd's on the right track. Sorry, you're holding up a 1.
Oh,
should I stop?
Okay. Well, guess what? PDWs don't necessarily need to make money anymore.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, well, they used to be tied to the Commissioners Fund, and essentially this last year at some point, David or Carolyn defunded that or declawed that. So our Commissioners Fund is now funded separately. So they don't need to make money. They want them to break even, and if it's a great session, they're not gonna cancel it if it's gonna lose a little money. They want them to at least break even, but the idea of them making money, I just wanted to point that out that is actually a change that'll start this year. But keep going, Kurt, because you're on the right point. You're on the right track here.
Yeah, but I mean, to a student, that's still how many cups of ramen do I have to eat in order to afford, a PDW, as opposed to just going to the session that I've already paid for anyway. But I think you're on the right track of aim high in the content, even if it's specific content, aim high in the content, and students will get a lot out of it just as much as professionals will.
Todd, have we thought about student pricing for the PDWs?
We have not. I'm going to write that down.
That might be something we need to look into, because say if a PDW is $145, that's a lot for a student. But if you say, okay, student price is $25, that might be a little more doable for them.
I was actually, I went to 2 PDWs while I was in grad school, and it's because both of my conferences I'd won my way into the conference from USITT Regional through design competition. That paid my way into the national conference, so I could use my conference money to then pay for a PDW. So something like that's giving students another way in to do those PDWs, because, I got huge amounts for mine.
Yeah, one of the other things I want to propose to the other commissions, and I don't know how well this is going to go, is I think there's some cross stuff that's going on that's diluting our programming. And let me point this out: safety and health. I was talking. It was funny. I was talking to one of the staff members at USITT, and they go, "Oh yeah, they're thinking about getting rid of the Safety and Health Commission because everybody's doing safety programming." I'm like, "Really? You heard that? That surprises me." I don't think we should get rid of the Safety and Health Commission because I think, we as lighting, we have these very good lighting focused safety things, but nobody's really looking at the overarching. That's what that commission needs to do. But if safety and health has 10 sessions and we're doing a safety, scene design's doing a safety, costumes doing a safety, well, now we have, we had this many, now we have this many safety and health sessions. So are we diluting it? Now, I don't think it's a bad thing to talk about safety, but the same thing could be said about education as well. So there's some commissions that are programming that are really cross-discipline. I think education, safety and health, but then there's other areas too. Jim's on the D&I committee, diversity and inclusion. So the D&I has 2 or 3 slots, and then commissions are doing work too. Again, this is a very big thing. I mean, it's good to have these, but are we kind of diluting ourselves? I think, particularly with education. It's like the one we did last year on modernizing lighting education. That's something that would not have probably come out of education because it was so specific, but it's something we needed to do. I kind of want to find a way that we can get a slot through education, maybe not every year, but every other year, so we can just do something very specific for lighting, but then we have another slot over here that we can reach some of these other things. Does that make sense? And also history and heritage is the other thing. Not that many people are doing history and heritage yet, but I can see more people doing them. And then if history and heritage has their own sessions, do we end up sort of diluting with these cross-commission things?
So the other snag that we probably talk about, just so everyone knows, is that as USITT continues to grow, we're going to get fewer sessions because we are currently too big for the conference centers that we're in. So that was part of what happened this year, and I think some of the confusion we had with the programming was that we had planned for our 15 sessions that we normally have, and then we went to the programming meeting and they were like, "Oh no, you actually only have 10 this time around because we just don't have the rooms for it." That's likely going to be the case at least for the next couple of years. So that's another thing to keep in mind, especially as we're talking about this cross-programming thing, is that we're not going to have as many sessions. So do we want to worry about focusing on something like a specific safety and health session or a specific education session if we know we have fewer than what we've been working with before?
Do you guys have any ideas? What could we do? Any ideas that you could have? I mean, any different approaches to programming that we might want to consider? All right.
Question: are we getting fewer sessions because there is less space, so there more commissions are cross using the same space, or are we getting less sessions because there's other programming or other national specific things that they want to promote during that time?
There's physically less rooms. They like Fort Lauderdale just does not have as many as we had last year. They're not big enough to hold us right now, and we're having trouble finding places that are big enough to hold us and still cheap enough, which I think, unfortunately, the way I think they're leaning, in Autumn, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like they're going to go with places that might be a tad more expensive so we can get the room that we need.
Yeah, well, and I do think it's a little bit of both in terms of what you were getting at, and that, like, I don't know if anyone noticed in the session programming last year, but there was a track for houses of worship. There's no house of worship commission, but but that's something that's sort of national, and I think in pushing the vendor side of things. So for the most part, my understanding is they're mostly taking up expo space, but perhaps not necessarily, and especially not if we have less room. So the idea where we used to all have our own homeroom is going away. That's just not going to be the case, especially this coming year.
For those who can't read chat, Todd Studebaker just said, I think we should have a student panel session, maybe even a student chair. If I knew they were going to be reliable, yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea. Yeah, Casey was asked. I mean, Casey was definitely on board. And again, this commissioners meeting in August was pretty productive. We actually started having some conversations we should have had 2 years ago. And I think they're open to changing programming. My concern is, and I think I'm not the only commissioner who feels this way, is that we're going to be told what the change needs to be as opposed to being a part of the change. And I don't think I'm the only one who sort of fears that. Todd Studebaker, we'll get back to our own room. This year we probably won't have our own room, but we'll get back to that in the future. We should have our own room in the future.
Yeah, moving forward, I know Louisville's bigger. Houston, I think, is bigger. Columbus, we didn't get a chance to look at. Did you guys, Todd? Did you guys get over to the convention center?
No, we didn't. We didn't get a chance to get over there. We pretty much just stayed in the hotel.
Yeah, so it's something that's come up in the board meetings as well, is about the fact that we're getting bigger. You know, the track for St. Louis was the thought was 4,900. Well, he came in at almost 6,000.
Right.
We weren't expecting that.
Well,
Thank you, Paul.
The show floor, I mean, is definitely one of the things that's growing, and I think we've all identified that we want to see gear, you know, and the show floor needs to grow. I think USITT needs to be careful what price that is. You know, when it comes to lighting studio, when it comes to what used to be the light lab, we're getting more and more pressure that if we want to see that gear, then that person needs to be on the show floor. I understand that, but I have a problem with that, because if it's not necessarily gear that we need to present the sessions or to present what we're doing, that it feels like there should be more separation. You know, when I'll be frank, I had a conversation about the lighting studio, and it was, you know, I said, well, we need 4 consoles. We don't need that much. We need 8 lights. And the response was, yeah, but we also need to get from these vendors stuff for the main stage, stuff for the costume, you know, for all this other stuff. And it's like, in some ways, I think we've got a little ADHD, and we're all trying to do a lot. Okay, that's part of the problem. But the other problem is we've got to make sure that, from our standpoint, programming come first, you know, and we shouldn't just adhere to our program shouldn't be dependent on who's on the show floor. But, you know, Jim, maybe you and I should have a separate conversation about that later. Actually, I think we have, and now I think about it. Sorry.
Yeah, but that was in a bar, so I don't think it counts.
Yeah, probably didn't. Probably me ranting a lot. Okay, any other thoughts or any other things that, you know, we can do better either in programming or just as a commission? I'll just take a couple minutes to field any things, and then because I think you guys have helped me a lot, let me tell you. And as the commissions start to define to the board what we are, I want to be able to bring what you guys have brought to them. So any other final thoughts? I know it takes a second.
I would just say as someone who hears from a lot of different people, both around the country and people in my own institution, that I think we as a lighting commission are actually doing pretty well in comparison to the feelings on some of the other commissions. But I feel that a lot of the reason that USITT is sort of, I think, is seeing this sort of fluctuation in issue might be because of that there, and I think part of it's important to keep the independence in the commissions, but there's so much independence and so much variety that people just see when they come to a conference, especially for a first or second time, they just see a bunch of different commissions running around and no sense of cohesion within that.
You hit the nail on the head, and I think that's what last commissioners meeting is going to try to start to fix. We need to find ways where we need to do things more similarly. The way we choose leadership needs to be more similar. How we allow people and invite people in. I mean, there are some commissions it's hard to get into, and to be honest, there's people out there who will say, I've tried getting into the lighting commission, I've never been able to break through there, and it's true, particularly if you figure if we have 15 positions, and in theory people could hold them for 6 years, stuff is not going to turn over that much. But I mean, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get people in as session chairs and on committees and stuff like that. But other commissions, no, you can't. You've pretty much got to know somebody, and it's really hard to get into positions. And I'll be honest, the Education Commission has been really good about accepting people over the years. I think they've done a great job of sort of taking those who didn't have a home in another commission. But yeah. Any other thoughts? I'm just giving people time to unmute.
Well, completely off topic.
Okay.
I get to go to Los Angeles for the weekend for the Art Equity Facilitator Training for Diversity and Inclusion. Paid for by some big institution, not mine. It's 8 days in total. It's 4 this month and then 4 again next month. And then I'll see what we can do with that.
That'd be great. I mean,
so if anybody's in Los Angeles this weekend, wants to buy me a beer.
So
no, okay, fine.
I'm on the wrong coast, man. All right.
I know.
real quick, any questions just about anything commission related? If it's faster to type it. If not, say it.
Todd, just more of a reminder that the Lighting Commission is involved still with Tech Olympics. And that does seem to be continuing and moving ahead nicely.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, if you guys haven't done Tech, you got to do it. Josh, I mean, we have fun. We have a lot of fun that night.
It's a hoot. And what was fun to see was Ellen White had the same scenario set up, a more complicated version of it set up at ETCQ this year in the factory. It was a lot of fun to watch. And so I've been working with her and talked with her at Q. So come January, probably we'll be looking for some volunteers to help out with that.
Okay. Cool. Anything else before we wrap this up? All right. I can't thank you guys enough for spending an hour and 20 minutes talking this through with me. And thank you for all the work that you do. If questions come up, like I said, I'm going to try to get this up online. If you're listening to this later and you have more questions, please give me shoot me an email, myself or Autumn. Cool. Hey, thank you guys very much. Hey, Autumn, can you stick for 2 seconds?
Thanks, Todd.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Todd.
No, thank you. I didn't get a chance to say hi, Deanna.
Aw. I saw her pop up on video.
I know, so did I. There she is.
Hi.
We can see you. We just can't hear you. I think a couple people are on. Hey, Deanna, if you have programming thoughts, please just send us some ideas. I mean, well, you know, it's pretty much the same conversation we had last year. I know, but I don't know. I think some things are changing in a good way. But so Deanna, and I know a few people are still on, and that's fine. But let me throw. See you later. I had another crazy idea for next year. Next year, starting say in July. Do you know how we currently have things divided up where you handle programming, I handle everything else? You handle programming and communication, I handle everything else.
Uh-huh.
Do you want to switch that up next year?
Sure.
Well, I'm thinking if in theory that is my last year, and again we can talk about whether that is or it isn't. But that way you've got a year of doing all those things with me still sticking on. I don't mind dipping my feet back into programming for a little bit. I mean, I'll still be the commissioner, but that way you'll have done like catering and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But just a thought. And again, next time we talk, let's talk that through. But I wanted to put that bug in your ear just to get that conversation started.
Okay.
But other than that,
yeah, that hadn't occurred. It does make sense.
Yeah, it was one of those 3 a.m. ideas that But no, I'm pleased with today.
Ooh, did you stop streaming?
I'm still streaming. Let me stop streaming and stop recording. I don't think what I just said is not a secret.